Welcome back. This is Local Tico Brohe, bringing you part 2 of the Mystic Knight Shield only run. Starting with our gear, we have the Diabolic Shield, obviously, is the most powerful shield in the game. The important items we have are the Sinner's Gauntlets, which we have the ability to boost shield abilities. And then our boots have the stability augment. We don't need that one, we just chose it because we wanted the boots and the gloves to match. Rings wise, we have rings to buff our fire, frost, and lightning deflects, as well as double bloody knuckles to increase shield damage and unarmed damage. And then the barbed nails for stagger and ring of desiccation to just avoid getting drenched. Skills-wise, as I mentioned, we have the Fire, Frost, and Thunder ripostes. And then, of course, the rings that buff those. Augments, Predation is going to be our healing. Everything else is going to be buffing our magic or our defenses, both magic and physical. Resuming our run with the Rotwood Depository. Now, I don't remember this bug existing, but we just walked into this room with an Ingle applied, or Inferno Feint, as it were. Now, we're changing the ring so that we can put Blizzard Feint, which is fine, but there was a bug while I was doing this run where if I was trying to use the same element buff as I had when I entered the room, when I would do a deflection, it would not actually deal damage. It was very odd. I was not very happy about that fact either. But it made some things very frustrating because I would want to deflect something the moment I came through the door, and I would get the deflection off and it wouldn't deal damage. Like even the goblins and things like that. So if you're playing and you're having that situation, just rebuff, you're probably okay. Now that damage we just did was from the physical deflection. These guys are actually resistant to ice. These ones are actually weak to fire. The Golden Knights are weak to frost. These ones, however, are weak to fire. That actually works out exceptionally well for us in this case because we are trying to use the frost to generate collateral damage so that we can kill these ghosts with the big frazzle move that gets generated. Assuming I ever actually get a deflection off. Unfortunately, it's still extremely frustrating, even though I have almost as many opportunities as I would like to take with how little damage we do per deflection. It requires us to have the ghosts positioned where we would like them at the same time as these guys deciding to attack. And it just doesn't happen as consistently as we'd like, but it finally has. So we'll switch back to Inferno Feint so we can kill these guys, which should be very, very easy. But, yeah, it's just another good example of how we need to deal with... Got him. How we need to deal with the ghosts by using the enemies that are around them in order to effectively deal our damage. Again, thankfully here, the enemy that is around them does swing at us and we deal minimal damage simply because they are resistant to the element that we are making use of. Here I'm going to back off a bit because I want, if he's going to target me, I want to be able to not be torpored if he tries to swing. Cool. Now, because we had the ghosts and them, we have a couple snakes. I was going to say spiders, but I knew that was the wrong word. So snakes in this room. There's one, as you can see. There are also two in that haystack. There's a few elsewhere around the room, but... I'm not overly worried about them. It's just these three. We are going to have more ghosts in a moment, but there's also going to be a handful of vile eyes in the room. Once I step kind of close to where that first column is where the ghost will spawn. The ghost generally doesn't spawn until I get to that column. Nice, we got the ghost. That guy got launched backwards because he got hit by the physical part of the deflection. That's why he got launched backwards before we even did the Damn. I was trying to get in front of it so I could deflect it back at him, but it's really easy if you're already in front of them to time when you need to do the deflection for those Ingles. But if you are not directly in front of them and they have to either move or you have to move to make it work, it becomes truly awkward because they'll just hold it until they finally cast it at you. And because of that fact, I'm sure it's behind me up that hill. Because of that fact, it becomes really like you're just hoping that they cast it when you're ready, and they just often don't. Well, that's an arc. That's not a bad drop. I think he's inside the wall. We're on the other side of the wall. Yeah, I agree. Might as well murder this guy. Or get beat up. Whichever one we want, really. Again, make some distance so that the torpor is not on top of us. I don't know where the Vili went, so the combat music ended though, so there's not a whole lot else we need to do. So here we're going to have a living armor with 2 ghosts, but we can still have an Elder Ogre, so we want the collateral option. Oh, no Elder Ogre, I mean. We want the option for the collateral with our block there, but in a moment you'll see we will swap back to Ingle, or Inferno Feint, I should say. We did still need that Blizzard Feint so that we could get that Riposte off to kill the 2 ghosts, the 2 phantoms, but once we have those, we're pretty happy. But as we demonstrated before in the Ward of Regret, Ingle really is king here. So that was actually a perfect block, but it just doesn't matter. That uppercut is just too much. I usually just sidestep that. You want to sidestep towards the shield side, though. If you sidestep towards the sword side, you might still get caught. It's really awkward to hitbox. I don't like it. Well, yeah. Earlier we did blocking and the toss on the Silver Knight, but it's drastically different. Reset our lantern here. And then on to the Forgotten Hall. We have the Liches, which means Ingle is actually the version we want, or Inferno Feint. But you'll see I'll buff it again because I want to avoid that bug. It's also a good call to buff it when you can anyway, because if the buff wears out, like, we don't have any damage. Pretty good damage. As you see, it's going to take us just more than 2. Hopefully this guy's casting Ingle. Nope, he's casting Combustion. This guy's doing good work, though. Hey, we interrupted the guy casting Combustion with that. That's actually pretty convenient. That's Combustion, that's also Combustion. Or, never mind, they're both casting Bolide. What's annoying about this room is there's not a whole lot of room I have to dodge. If I run too far forward, there are Hellhounds, like, around that corner. So I can only really stay on this side of the room, and while they're casting Bolide, obviously, that's a little bit scary. Hopefully one of these is doing Death Magic. And one of them is. And I didn't time it right. Nice. Okay, he missed, is what happened. Always awkward when you're using the correct ability, and it looks like you're doing it at the right time, but then they just miss. I feel like you're trying to perfect block or iframe something, and then they just miss you, and you're like, oh. So our favorite move for these guys to use would be Ingle, followed by Frigger. Frigger's a lot easier to deflect than Combustion is. And it gives us 2 opportunities to deflect, like Ingle does. Ingle's just a little bit more consistent for me. We only got 1. That's fine. There's the 2. I believe just needs 1. Yeah, that looks like only 1 more. This looks like Bolide again. Yeah. But yeah, we only need 1 more deflection in order to kill this guy. So, pretty happy with that. As I said before, we do have Hellhounds on the other side of the room, so we're going to try and evade these Bolides while staying kind of in this little pocket. I don't want to be too close just in case he's casting Combustion. Combustion really does hurt. It's really awkward to deflect. I don't like it. Once we get to the Hellhounds, though, we'll actually not have too bad of a time because we can just Blizzard Feint. It actually does decent damage. So here we should switch to Blizzard. And again, the best thing about Blizzard Feint is that it does a pretty large AoE. So the reason my deflection was a failure there was because the one that I was trying to deflect literally just missed me. He shot wide to my left, so I had timed my block there, and then like a second one shot directly at me. I wasn't ready for it. But, you know, we get up, we deflect the very next one. We kill 3, freeze the 4th, and then a 5th one that we didn't hit, we catch with the last one. Now these leaf worms, we're using Blizzard again just because of the big AoE it does. We can generally kill our target and then at least 1 more. Leaf worms were how we farmed out these rings that we're using, by the way. The shield buffs, these shield buffs specifically, but the shield buffs are all this is part of a like awkward segment where we don't have a good way to really kill the sorcerers unless they cast their little magic bolts at us directly. But if they choose to cast spells, it's always going to be either a Debilitation Cloud, Maelstrom, or Seism, all of which are not good for us. The Debilitation Cloud's okay, because we can just walk around that, but the Other two, obviously, if we get hit by them, we're just going to die. Ice for the Strigoi. It's kind of goofy. None of them are casting. None of them are casting, and then that guy's like, well, since you're casting, I'll cast. Goofy. Truly goofy. So we switched to Boltstorm. Boltstorm makes it so that regardless of how far away we are when we block something of these guys, we will get a deflect and hit them back. Because the 11 just hits vertical, it hits wherever they are. The risk is that if we used Frazzle, two things can happen. One, if we, for example, the guy that shot us when we were in the room just then, if we had done a Frazzle, there's a risk that we don't even reach him with our attack. Because the Frazzle, it is large, but it's not like super far, it's just really broad. It's decently far, do not get me wrong, but it's very broad. The other concern is that if we do get the Frazzle, or the Blizzard Feint off, there's a big possibility that we hit the Prisoner Gore Cyclops, which I have no intention of really fighting. If we fight Prisoner Gore Cyclops, I'm not going to be overly disappointed. It's not that bad, because we do have Blizzard Feint, is quite effective. I think actually we generally use Boltstorm though, because it does strike down in the head, but I just don't remember. Either way, like, we can deflect him. It's not the worst thing. It's very tedious because he has to use certain attacks for us to be even able to do that, but there's another Maelstrom. But beyond that, it's not, again, it's not the worst thing in the world. But both of those concerns combine into a circumstance that makes it so that it's just wiser to use Boltstorm. Boltstorm is going to one-shot these guys. It's not going to matter how far I am, and it's very unlikely to get collateral damage on the Prisoner Gore Cyclops or release him. Although we did. I said it was unlikely, not impossible. And that's why I said it was unlikely, because I knew we could. I did not recall that we do hit them, but I knew we could. I was like, if they're really close, it will hit them, because it's just going to strike down. What's interesting there is we removed the helmet, but seemed to have done 0 damage to him. I guess lightning is super duper not to play. That might be just a debilitation. Nope, it's taking too long to cast. It's another Maelstrom. And unfortunately, this is a pretty consistent problem when fighting these guys, or any casters really. It's, you have to have them cast the spells that you can deflect or shoot at you like that. And there's just plenty of times where they don't desire to. In the next room, I think we have the Cyclops configuration. It has like mage pawns in it. And getting them to attack us with a move that we like is similarly frustrating. We're just waiting for them to do something other than silence us or anodyne. There are 8 leapworms here. I think that was either 4 or 5. I don't really recall. It was 4, so we just killed an additional 4. Did I say there were 6? I meant there were 8 leapworms here. There are 8 leapworms. Boltstorm Feint, we go Boltstorm because there are spiders coming up. Spiders are gonna have the chain lightning effect. They're very susceptible to to the lightning effects, so. If I had deflected the one that was right in front of me instead of the one that was in the far corner, it's possible I could have hit all 6. We didn't. And I was correct. We do have Cyclops configuration here. I will switch to Blizzard Feint because I want the AoE. That guy's casting Combustion, so I'll back off. Then I'm going to run back in because I need to. But I sprinted specifically so that I don't have concerns. One's dead. At least. One mage, I mean. Cyclops, extremely easy to kill. Looks like we killed 2 of them. Cyclops are really easy to kill, for the most part. Every once in a while they'll stop attacking you and you're just like, how do I deflect when you don't do anything? Interesting. But the mages are really my chief priority because they can just elect to not attack us. So we want to kind of position ourselves in a way that if we do deflect something, the collateral will be deflecting into them. Like that. These Cyclops have 2 different grabs. The grab that he just did with his left hand, we can deflect all day long. The other grab that he does is with his right hand. And that grab we can't deflect. If we try and deflect it, he'll just pick us up. A little bit annoyed that we shot that the other direction than I was facing. The other direction from where the actual combatant was. But that's it. So a big concern here, and why I'm Blizzard Feinting at that time, is that the mage pawns like to use Silentium on us. And if they do, and I don't have Blizzard Feint already running, and I haven't buffed it recently, what's going to happen is... What ends up happening is I can't rebuff my shield, and then I don't do any damage for the most part. And I'm just kind of stuck. So that's why we buffed our shield there, because if we did get silenced, but if they silence us before we get a chance to buff, we're kind of just in this awkward spot where there's nothing we can do. Here, I'm just going to gather as many bats as I can. That way I can try to kill them all as quickly as possible. They're not overly dangerous, but if you go one at a time, they do become kind of annoying. Whereas I generally will kill them one at a time with any sort of range. Here, it's just not. We'll just deflect them all, especially since I don't care if I get hit. I can use Predation to get all my health back. There's very little in the way of trouble in terms of what happens. So we swapped a ring out. We put on the Ring of Desiccation, mostly because there are a couple areas down here in the gutter portion of the Bloodless Stockades that have water too deep for us to just stand in without having our lantern wet. And while I don't expect to, like, I don't have a dodge roll, right? So I don't expect to get... I don't expect to have too many problems in terms of... Rude. I don't have too many expects to get knocked over or things like that. It's still possible. Obviously there I did, so the Ring of Desiccation's already been a valuable decision. I'm struggling. There we go. That's one. I have no idea what that was. Like, where it came from, I mean. It looked like that Ingle shot up from below. No idea. So here I'm throwing these rocks so he doesn't decide that throwing rocks is fun and he walks over there specifically to do that. That's the grab that we're allowed to deflect. It's like the grab where they're picking things off the ground. They can pick off creatures off the ground using that grab. Generally not you, but that's the grab that we can deflect. This grab, we can't. Now this shouldn't kill us. It'll be low, but it shouldn't kill us. We have both Bastion, which negates physical damage a decent amount, as well as Autonomy, which also negates, or not negates, but it reduces physical damage taken, and then Autonomy, which increases our defense stat. So it's, I mean, they both increase our defense stat. It's just the wording on their separate things. This isn't ideal. We are low health. There's only a few enemies we can kill. However, with Predation, getting 100 health back is on every creature except for things like corrupt pawns and golems. The reason I bring this up is there are a good bounty of leapworms that we did not spawn in because it's just not exciting to do so, I guess. They're really annoying. Even knowing they're there, they're very annoying to deal with. So we might either backtrack here and go kill them for health, or we might kill them after we kill the guys on this side. Looks like we're gonna kill the guys on this side first. We don't want to enter the next room at low health though. That is for sure, because that would be exceptionally dangerous. I don't know why I decided to aggro them and then come over here. Kind of an odd decision, if you ask me. Okay, we've already gained about 1,000 health. Now I can get hit by the leapworms and take decent damage. They deal like 100 or so to me. So if I don't deflect, I do run into some trouble. As we can hear, death is spawned. Our leapworm shenanigans, I guess, were enough trouble. So usually there's a couple more if we come up after we jump down. So we were at what, like 400 health, something like that, and now we're back up to 28. Pretty valuable excursion, if you ask me. Unfortunately, like I said before, we do have death spawning. Death is an enemy we can't deal damage to. And it's very possible that he kills our target here before we get the chance to, which is not cool. I don't believe I have sleep resistance. So what I'm going to do is lure him away and then try and Look at that one shot, because he was asleep. And we were able to hit the head. This is another thing. We don't generally hit the head with the ice damage. These guys are weak to ice damage. The reason we use Levin to kill the other one is because we can hit the head with Levin. We pretty much never hit the head with, I say Levin, I mean Boltstorm Feint. It just casts 11. The reason we don't use it on these is because I want the collateral to block. The 11 isn't as good against the Vile Eyes, in my experience. It's probably fine, but it's not as good. I feel like it's a little bit slower, is what it is. And sometimes they'll close their eye and become invulnerable before the Boltstorm Feint will reach them, whereas Blizzard Feint is pretty quick, pretty immediate. But it also allowed us to deflect the Vile Eyes effectively. I don't see where the Vile Eyes went. Were they scythed? I guess so. But anyway, the Blizzard Feint basically permits us to, look at that, 0 damage. The health that's missing is probably from our collateral damage with the Blizzard Feint. But anyway, we're gonna just move on to the Sparyard of Scant Mercy. But yeah, the reason we were using that Blizzard Feint was the opportunity to both kill the Vile Eyes very quickly, as well as deal some additional damage to the Gore Cyclones. We remembered to take the Ring of Desiccation off. That's good. A lot of my runs, if I put the Ring of Desiccation on there, I will forget to take it off, and then we'll pretty much do the rest of it until, with the Ring of Desiccation equipped, until like the end of time. And then like we'll finish, or we'll be at Daimon, and I'm like, oh man, I should have had the other ring on. Obviously, it's not like make or break very often, but it is often. It's a little bit unfortunate. So as before, we can deflect some of the casts, obviously. I think I just blocked that Bolide. But yeah, we can deflect some of the casts. We can definitely deflect arm swipes. But we can deflect the little aura damage that the heart deals when you're close to it. That's what that first one was where I started talking about. It's very effective because you're literally touching the heart. You can't miss it with the deflection. The heart's dealing the damage, so generally you deflect back towards the damage anyway. And it's just very good. Obviously you can deflect certain casts. There was no reason for me to attempt to deflect that one though. I'm a little bit annoyed we got hit by that because we weren't in the circle for the one that had already cast. We were in the circle for the other one, but we were zapped before it came out, so I'm a little confused of which one actually hit us. But the hitboxes are a little bit wonky on Levin, unfortunately. Now, the biggest concern I have about this one is obviously if they each cast things that I have to evade, or I want to block one thing and then evade, it becomes complicated to deal with. But Bolides are my biggest concerns, and then once we get them below 4 health bars remaining, they can heal. And it becomes tricky. Because the once they get below 4 health bars remaining, the urgency for me to kill them increases basically, and it's hard to guarantee that I actually get that hit in when I have 2 of them casting. If there's only one, it's resoundingly simple. I can just do it in my time, but it does become complicated. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do when they're knocked down, so generally in a run, getting it knocked down is like a great opportunity. But here, it serves no purpose. I can't... The aura on its heart goes away when it's knocked on the ground. It's that you have that opportunity, and yeah, I can't make use of that to get a deflect off. And since I can't deflect anything that's not attacking me while it's knocked on the ground, I just kind of have to wait. Perfect. Wing Flap is the best move it can do in low health because you can just deflect. If you get to stand in the right spot, which we can because we have this ability on our boots, you can deflect wherever you want. If we didn't have the stability augment on our boots, it's not crippling, frankly. We can just perfect block. The difference would have been instead of killing it outright there, we might have just done really good damage. But again, right after we're done with that, we can just keep deflecting because we'd get closer to the heart like that. There is like a cadence to like when the ticks of the heart come out. If I had a metronome or something, it'd be probably better. I don't know if it's actually on a game clock like that, or if it's like if I knock them down and they stand back up, if it would change the timing. Like it would change the beat at which they're doing it on. But it is at a very specific beat. So what I generally do is I walk up, I feel the vibration of my controller for the first one, and then I just know the cadence, and I'll try and deflect the second one. We've been messing up a lot in the last couple minutes, but there are times when, like, pretty much every single time I can get the second tick of the heart deflect. And it's honestly not that bad, like difficulty-wise. It's really not terrible. Okay, since he's knocked down, we'll probably rebuff. Yep, exactly. There's just no better time. There's nothing else for us to do. He's below 3 health bars, so we know he's going to want to heal at some point. Our goal is just to kill him before he decides to heal. Which can be a problem. What's nice about this configuration is... Oh, wow. What's nice about this configuration is that... Or not this configuration, but this fight for us specifically against this type of dragon is that even if he heals, it's not a big deal. Because we deal quite good damage. There's only one damage source. It's this dragon. That's a little bit awkward. Now you should charge. I might get the deflect off. Yep. Easy. Easy peasy. Okay. Fallen City. Looking down, I can see the Eliminator. This is a touch annoying. We have 2 dragons to deal with, and then possibly a third one in the, what is it called? The Cursed Dragon, because the Cursed Dragon's the carrion beast that can spawn in this configuration. The other one has death. But this one has 8 Eliminators we're going to have to deal with, whereas the other one would only have 3, and then 3 living armor, whereas this one still has 3 living armor. So there's just more targets for us to kill. The only positive note is that the dragons that are in this configuration are considerably easier to kill than the Thunder Wyvern is. We've already killed 1 Thunder Wyvern, and you guys hopefully recall how terrible that was. That was in the first video in the Duskmoon Tower. It took us quite a while because we can only really deflect it when it flies into the air and crashes into the ground, which is not like a riveting experience, frankly. We don't want to have to do that. That circumstance doesn't really change with these ones. The difference is these ones are so much weaker that we kill it way quicker. That's all. They operate the exact same way, though. They're going to continuously just fly into the air. They're going to just continuously fly into the air and then try to move down at us. which fortunately gives us very consistent patterns because we can just deflect them with Inferno Feint. But it still does not make a very engaging fight most of the time. So we knew before this room entered that we were going to have an annoying dragon. It was just which... Did we get the extremely annoying one with the big health bar, or did we get just the kind of annoying ones with the smaller health bars? And we got the multiple smaller health bar ones. Look, we're looking at that light turning. The torch light was like going brighter and then darker, depending on where I was standing there. That's why I was like walking back and forth. I'd never seen that before. Nice. I was going to say what's cool here is if they run into the lightning, they'll actually get stunned as well, which is a good situation for me. It makes it slightly safer, but fortunately, we also do great damage. That hammer swing is one that actually requires a pretty good shield. If you don't have a good shield, but you have a good shield, but it's not like great, you might not have the stability to actually deflect that shield without losing your footing. Obviously we do, but like when we first got to Bitterblack Isle, we couldn't actually do that. We were getting caught. These dragons, man. This is why I do not like them. Now, when they do that little flap, you can deflect that. It's just really hard to time because you can't see when they're going to do it. They just suddenly do it. I am kind of impressed with myself for having landed that deflection, considering I couldn't really see it. But the reason we have our lantern off, by the way, is because it makes it harder for enemies to detect us, and the enemies that we're trying not to detect us so quickly are some of these eliminators, but more importantly, the dragons. We don't want the dragons casting at us before we want to engage with them. Which we only want to engage with them after the eliminators are dead, because the eliminators are far more dangerous. If I get knocked down by one and it stomps on me, like we could just completely die. But the eliminators are far more dangerous, so we want to delay the dragons noticing us as long as possible. Fortunately, we've delayed them long enough because they can't really do anything to us here. We're close enough that they are unlikely to cast at us and are likely to just fly up and try and breathe at us, but we can get into positions with these buildings where they won't be able to hit us with their breath. Which obviously is very good for us. A little bit surprised that the first one didn't deal that much lightning damage to the second. But that's okay. These are the last two eliminators. So, in a moment, we'll be able to engage our truly, truly annoying foe in these dragons. We'll switch to Inferno Feint to do so, though, so I'll have to switch rings here momentarily. It would also be somewhat wise for me to switch to the barbed nails here for the increased, I don't know why I canceled that earlier, for the increased stagger and knockdown, but obviously it's not going to be that necessary because I don't think we did that for the Thunder River anymore. We're still okay. The Bloody Knuckle just doesn't really do a whole lot. It doesn't increase our deflection damage unless we're getting the value of the physical deflection. So we have to be touching more or less in order to do it. And on these guys, we're less likely to be touching, so because for the most part they won't be right next to us like this when they fly into the air. There, I'm just gonna hit the heart. I normally won't, but it's because we don't do damage when we do. Although we actually might to these guys. I'm not entirely certain. These guys are the weaker ones, so it's possible. But the main reason I don't generally do damage there is because we don't. Or sorry, the general reason why I don't punch them is because we just don't do damage. But I punched that one because we hadn't hit the heart yet, and if I punch the heart, he's gonna stand up immediately. So it basically just was a time save. And I want to bust the heart open anyhow, so kind of like two birds, one stone. We got a lot of benefit out of just that one punch thrown. Now the reason he's probably not flying is we might have busted a wing earlier, and if you bust their wings, they don't fly. They can still fly if you put them in a position where the only way they can reach you is by flying, but they don't fly as often. It's less likely that they do their regular flying motion. These are just the Grancis level wyverns, so that's why they're so much easier to kill. That one I was just luring away to where it resets so that I can run over to where it's going to touch down, which is over here. But yeah, because these are the Grancis level, we can actually kill their wings and pop their horns off with very few ripostes. But, wow, okay. But if you remember the, and see there, if we had had the barbed nails, we actually might have gotten the knockdown instead of the bloody knuckle. I'm guessing. I don't really know, obviously. But it could have been the difference. It is possible. But yeah, because these are the Grancis level, we bust those wings pretty quickly. But if you remember in the first video, we never really got the wings to break throughout the entire health bars. And the wings are what we hit more often than anything else. We have done it in our practice runs. We managed to kill the wings a good number of times. But generally on the Thunder Wyvern in Duskman Tower, if we did kill the wings, it was literally at the very end. Yeah, that's probably a wing break right there. See how bloody and banged up the wings are? Yeah, that was definitely a wing break. We just broke a horn now. But yeah, generally if we broke the wings on the Thunder Wyvern, it would only have like a health bar left, maybe a health bar and a half, and then we were just kind of like, okay, this doesn't really serve much in the way of purpose. But here, obviously, we have weaker dragons, so they're quite easy to destroy. Now we're starting the living armor fight with about 3,000 health. Inferno Feint's definitely the way to go. Generally, I will isolate these and separate them by just running and backtracking and getting them to use certain moves at certain times so that I can have them kind of desynced from when they're attacking. But I don't remember if I do that or if I just deflect all of them kind of here. Because we do kill them fairly quickly. If I am allowed to deflect all of them without taking damage, which is the trick, right, then we're pretty happy. Yeah, it looks like I do isolate them, which is the smart play. I can't heal other than Predation, so I don't want to risk getting hit too much. And that was a hit. That was like 800 health, followed by like 900 health. So we just went from having actually, I think that math was wrong. I don't remember. We had like 300 or 3,000 health though, right? Didn't we? And now we're down to under 2. We definitely lost over 1,000 health. I just don't remember if we were at like 28. I think we were at 28,000 or 2,800 health before, and now we're at 17. Wow, look at that. Feels bad. Unfortunately, we're only going to get 100 health per living armor kill, and as you see, they hit pretty good. I don't know, maybe we had 3,800 health or something like that. We lost about 2,000 there. Because I know these guys usually deal about like 800 damage to me or something like that. Keep in mind, as far as defenses go, we have the lesser version of the armor level 3 for boots and gloves, but our chest piece, we have the animistic robe, which is like you can grab that in the Great Wall. It's not the best. I love it. It looks really cool. Don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite armor pieces, but it's not like particularly great. And then we have the Laurel Circlet, which is mostly a factionable item, but it has a magic bonus on it, so it's still worthwhile for us, but it's not the most defensive play. Although not bad. But again, that's not a Bitterblack item. You can get one in Bitterblack for sure, but you can also buy one from Magick and post it. It's like a maybe an Everfall tier. It's a post-game tier item. It's not, again, it's not crazy. We don't even have a cape slot equipped, you know? It's like, we take good damage from these guys, even with Autonomy and Posture. It's just, you know, these guys just hit like a truck. Absolute semis. Fortunately, we hit pretty hard. Now, we're using Ingle because of how much value it has, especially in phase 1 of their fight, but Levin would also be pretty good. The Frigger version, or Frazzle rather, isn't that good. In fact, it doesn't really do anything except for on the physical portion of the deflect. However, if we had used 11 in phase 2, it generally hits pretty nicely, actually. It usually deals a little bit more damage, but the difference isn't that meaningful, and the difference in phase 1 between Inferno Feint and Boltstorm Feint is noticeable. So there's no reason to buff before going into this cutscene to avoid the bug, because when we... As a Mystic Knight, if you have your shield buffed and you enter a cutscene, it will remove your buff. I don't know why. It doesn't do that if you're like a sorcerer and you buff a weapon. If you're a Mystic Knight and you're using the trance ability to buff your weapon, the weapon buff will remain. Just for whatever reason, your shield buff goes away. So, I'm going to have to rebuff at the start of this fight anyway. So to do that, I'm going to run behind him, usually, through his legs, because he generally is going to do a kick, and then he's going to have to turn around to do something at me. And it gives me just... Generally, it gives me a good window. Us getting kicked right there was pretty tragic. Certainly not how we want to open the fight, because now we're at a very dangerous point. Levins we like, we can deflect them, but we won't deflect the first one very often, because if he follows up with Levin cast and then punches or something like that, or an ice spikes, it's very easy for us to get caught. Obviously, if we get caught, we can die. We are pretty low, 1,200 health. If he grabs me, I'm dead. If he catches me with a good punch, I'd probably die. Considering we were at like... That was lucky. We got the deflect off right into his face. When you deflect, or not deflect specifically, when you hit him in the face while he's trying to go for his grab, it's very easy to stagger him. And both in phase 1 and phase 2. Because phase 2, his grab is where he tries to bite you with the big face on his chest. Both of those grabs are when he is the most vulnerable to being staggered. The little very sharp fist and wrist that we have for the shadow. Here, I'm just going to hold the buff. I want to maximize its uptime. I don't need to have it up while he's completely invulnerable to us, but I also don't want to finish it after he's done with this cast, because I want to get up to his face. I don't want to have a situation where he casts at me or charges at me. Because him charging at me for the grab, I mean, it's just exceptionally dangerous. We don't want it. As I said before, we might deflect these, we might not. It's going to depend on what he chooses to do, because it can be extremely dangerous. There, I just held the block instead of going for a deflect, because if I had mistimed it because of the Levin deflection, it would have been awkward. He doesn't give us very many opportunities to buff, so we take them when we can. There, he flew up into the air, we were safe, so we take it. And this is the play, we just constantly do this. Daimon is weaker to holy damage than he is fire. Because of that, a lot of people like to use the holy riposte against him. I still prefer fire, because fire allows us to hit him from range. But the other thing is, on a casual run, if you're using cannon, everyone, well, maybe not everyone, but you know, most people are aware of the synergy where if you hit the cannon with your deflection, it will send a bunch of cannon bolts out, which is fantastic. The thing about it is, you can only have so many of those bolts like spawned at a time, little balls spawned at a time. So what ends up happening when you use the holy one is, before they hit Daimon, like a good half of them will disappear because too many spawn in, and so it'll disappear the first ones before they even land, and then only like the second half will eventually strike him, which is, you know, fine, whatever. It does great damage anyway, so we're cool with it. The problem is, if you don't have a cannon up and you deflect, you're literally just not hitting him unless he's right up on you, which in phase 2, he never is. So I prefer Ingle, because it's very, I think it's the same amount of damage, because I think it creates the same number of balls that will actually strike him. But, that was very close. That was very close. That's a combo that I hate, when he does the size him and then straight into the grab, because you can't really see it, because the size him gives like a nice smoke screen. You have to run away and make distance as well, and then the grab is just like completely obscured. Anyway, what was I saying? Ah, yes. That was almost dangerous. The thing about Ingle, though, with cannon, it makes, if not the same amount of balls that strike him, a very similar number, to the effect that it's meaningless, the difference. But on top of that, if you cast something when you're not on top of your cannon, the Inferno Feint ability will send the Ingles just at Daimon's body. So you can't really, you don't miss as much as you do with the Holy One. Yes, the Holy One gives us some health back. Yes, it deals a little bit better damage when it's just striking. But Ingle does great damage to this guy. You can hit it more consistently. It just has a lot more benefits to me. So I very rarely will choose to go with the Holy Riposte anymore. Blessed Riposte, I think, is actually what it's called. Blessed Riposte. I have in the past, do not get me wrong. I've used it a great deal. I love it against Cursed Dragons, because you can put a sigil down, and then you can put a cannon down, and then if he comes over to you and you hit it with the cannon, the balls will generally disappear like as they're being made if he's on top of it, and it just becomes absolutely disgusting. Just will absolutely shred a Cursed Dragon. But on Daimon, I fail to see it being more beneficial than just fire. And then fire is a little bit more useful everywhere as well, because of the ranged aspect that it has. if you were going to do a shield only run, I would just recommend you go with the 3 normal elements. If you want... Ooh, do we survive? I'm going to say yes, only because we kept this video. That was a good amount of damage, though. That was about 800. We won't survive another one of those. We only survive that, by the way, because we have Autonomy and Awareness. That is a Magick damage move. Without Awareness, we would probably struggle. We probably have okay Magic resist. I don't actually know what the stat scaling for Mystic Knight is. We probably have good Magic defense, but still. Scary, 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 scary. Okay, I don't mind the corkscrew punch move, because that one we can deflect and it usually hits him pretty consistently. Oh, he's so close. Really? The point blank grab attempt. Yay! So with phase 1 complete, phase 1 is by far the more dangerous of the 2 phases for Daimon. The reason for that is his grab is difficult to see, and that's what caught us. And then like his kicks and punches are pretty... He's just a squirrely guy. He does a lot of attacks very quickly. He can mix them up into really powerful combos, like I was talking about, the size him into the grab, things like that. Size him into punch is another one that gets me a lot. Like corkscrew punch, I mean. The thing about phase 2 Daimon is that he's very deliberate with his attacks. He doesn't really combo until he starts doing like the grand spells. And so he'll do like Bolide size him or size him into Bolide, and that's really the only dangerous combo we have. We love Ingle. Ingle is, if we could get him to do one ability over and over again, it would be Ingle, because for Ingle we can get 2 deflections off like we just did. And because he doesn't move his character model a lot when he casts, we don't miss. When he does his arm swings, you'll note that we'll miss sometimes when he does his arm swing. Like some of the fireballs that are generated. The reason for that is we're not deflecting Daimon, we're deflecting the ghost dragon visage behind him. So when we do that, you'll note that the fireballs are actually floating up a little higher than they normally were. So when he swings with his right, the arm on our left, we generally will strike him because the center of mass for that dragon is kind of behind where Daimon's head is. But when he swings with his left arm, which is on our right side, the center of mass is like a little bit to his left. And so when we deflect it, a lot of the time and you'll see right here, a lot of the time our bolts will like kind of slide behind him because he turns his body so much. So we generally will only get like 1 or 2 strikes in. Ingle, however, he doesn't really move, and the Ingle comes directly from him. So we end up hitting the face on his chest a lot more. This one, we should hit most of them because, again, the way he turns his body, we're still kind of in line. And it's just... in order of, like, which moves we'd want, Ingle's number 1. Number 2 is probably that his right arm swipe. Double arm swipe is probably tied in next place with, like, Levin, though. The reason I don't have Levin higher is because while Levin has multiple casts, it does become a little bit awkward sometimes. Now, I should differentiate. I would say the number 2 probably would be when he casts Levin like that, where it's very slow. There's a lot of time between Levins. Usually when he casts it, though, the 4 lightning bolts come down at the same time, so we can only get 1 deflection off anyway, and it's often somewhat awkward, which is why I have it down further than just his left arm swipe, because the left arm swipe is very consistent and hit with most of them. But if he's going to cast the slow Levins like that, then yes, we do want it after Ingle. It's just still a little bit awkward because, just like in phase 1, we have to be cautious about what we do with Levin. And it's very easy to see Levin and be like, ooh, I can deflect this 4 times, because you can. and then you get caught. You get caught because either he does the fast Levin when you're expecting the slow one, or he manages to cast something else quickly afterwards and you get caught. Like you're deflecting 11 and then he does an arm swipe and you just get slapped. Things like that can happen. Again, as I said at the beginning of this phase, he's a lot more deliberate with his attacks, so like getting combos off like that isn't the norm. Yeah, here's the quick 11, so we'll only deflect the last one. And it's always a somewhat nerve-wracking experience because of that. When we hit him with our riposte, you just saw there he was kind of desynced from the arm. That is something you have to be aware of, because when you land the retaliations on your deflections, so those fireballs hit him, his character model is, he basically gets stationary for like a split second. This is very obvious if you're using something like Holy Riposte or Blessed Riposte, because it's very apparent that he's just stationary for like a matter of seconds as he gets hit every single time. Like, just gives him a little tiny mini. It's not staggered. He's just like paused kind of. But because his arm swipe is two different character models, his physical body will be delayed for the swipe, but the visage of the dragon behind him, that's the actual swipe that strikes you, will maintain its regular speed. So you have to pay attention when you do get a riposte off while he's trying to crank up that arm, that you have to pay attention to the ghost arm and not his character model, because while they are usually synced and you can use his character model to determine when you need to deflect, if you're not paying attention to the ghost and he's getting that desync because you're striking him with a retaliation effect, it's very easy to get caught. That actually ended one of our runs when we were doing practice. Well, not ended. It didn't end one of our runs, but we got caught by that a number of times in practice that would eventually lead to our death because we'd just be lower health and get caught by something else. But getting hit by the arm because we're watching the character model and we desynced him by riposting 11, because 11's pretty much the only thing that strikes that you can deflect late enough to be during his next attack, basically. So you just need to be cognizant of that situation so that you don't lull yourself into a bad situation by doing things one way and then realizing, ooh, I should not actually consider doing it that way. And that is a circumstance as to why I also view it Levin, I mean, not something else. When I said it, I meant Levin. Why I view Levin as less valuable than Ingle, even though Levin, technically I can deflect 3 times sometimes. But when I get the slow Levin, I still don't put it over Ingle, even though it's 3 deflections versus 2. Because it's very easy to have a mistake during Levin, whereas Ingle's extremely consistent. Speaking of Ingles, he hasn't hit us with one in a minute. I want to say he hit us with one like maybe 30 seconds ago, or probably 45 at this point, but he hasn't cast one other than that single Ingle. I might have said Levin, I meant Ingle. I hadn't seen him in a minute. Speak of the devil, though. Double arm swipe. Unfortunately, we are on... This is a situation I don't like. I am up on the side and he is down below. I want to generally be on the same level as him. You see how there's the stairs over here, it's slightly higher. I want to be on the same level as him because if he does the arm swipes and he's even higher than I am, you see how they're swiping up those fireballs that we're sending out with our Inferno Feint? If you are not at the same height as him in the room, the trajectory slope will be even more aggressive than that, and you'll miss most of the fireballs, whereas a lot of the times you won't. And because of that, I find it easier to just stay at the same level he is and completely avoid the issue. I said it. Issue. Weird. Reminds me of the film The King, which, if you haven't seen, is spectacular. On Netflix, starring Timothy Chalamet. It's a few years old now, but it is quite good. But I digress. This is the part of the phase 2, which is really annoying. Basically, once you shave off, I think it's only like 4 health bars. It might be 5, but it's only like 4 or 5 health bars in phase 2. You can start casting Bolide and Size him, and he becomes very tedious and annoying at that point. Simply because he'll cast them very consistently, and there's just little you can do. Whenever he does this fire breath, he's always going to pick a side, so just stand in front of him and then wait till he goes left or right, and then just run around him on the other side. Because he chose our right side last time, I know he's going to choose our left side this time, even though we've completely swapped which side of his body we were on, and he had to completely turn. It's always the opposite side of last time, in relation to where you are standing to him. Not just directionally cardinally or anything else. It's just based off of your relation with him. So here's an example of what I mean about us being different heights. That was actually really fortunate. We actually got those. I'm actually kind of surprised. I think it's because we were close enough to have it not be an issue. But there were a number of times in practice where I would be on the lower field down here in the middle of the room, and what would happen is we would get a deflect on the arm swipes, and they would just go wild and completely miss him. Now, I want to say he is at the point where he can Soul Vortex again. Okay, that was pretty wild. We're jumping. I didn't mention this earlier. I have mentioned it in every other video, though. But we are jumping because if you are airborne when the Seism cast finishes, like it goes off, you won't get hit by the stagger that happens, where you like have the jelly legs and you're trying to maintain your balance. You can avoid that stagger simply by being in the air. It's very consistent. It's very easy to do if you have double jump or levitate. Obviously, at this point, we do not. In fact, when we did our no-hit run as Mystic Knight, we elected to use the staff, which I don't like to do. I do not think the staff using Holy Focus Bolt is a very fun way to engage with Daimon. Unfortunately, we were too far away. The Ingles that are generated don't last forever, unfortunately. They don't go as far. Just like Cannon doesn't go forever. Regular Ingle doesn't go forever. So we kind of just missed out a little bit. I'm probably not going to try and deflect this because the camera is so bad I can't see the visual indicators. But anyway, the main reason on our no-hit run that we used Holy Focus Bolt was, one, the damage is good, obviously. We want to have something good damage. But the primary reason is actually I count getting caught in that stagger as a hit. Obviously, this isn't a no-hit run. But I count that stagger as a hit, and the only consistent way to avoid it is to be in the air, and jumping is kind of risky. Just like being on the ground and doing a jump with a sword equipped, you know what I mean? It's risky. Levitate's very easy because we have so much airtime. Jumping, not so much. And his Seism can have 2 separate cast times. Oh my goodness. 286 health. Time to clutch it up. There's no way this actually hits. 1, because we're so far away, it's going to shoot up into the sky. But 2, we were too far away anyway. Even if we had absolute precision onto him, we would never, like, ever reach him. Yeah, see, that's the jelly legs we're trying to avoid. But yeah, it's hard to evade it by jumping normally, because there are 2 different cast times, in fact, that Daimon can use that ability. One is a very quick cast, which is what he did last time and why I got caught. There's another one that's a little bit longer. And because I only have so many frames that I can be airborne for with a regular jump, it became too dangerous. We were too consistently getting caught by the jelly legs, especially on a fight where Mystic Knight's not really the fastest kill. It's a fun kill, do not get me wrong. And I'm talking about like using cannon and everything. It's a fun kill. It's one of my favorites, but it's not fast. And so the longer the fight goes, the more Seisms we have to dodge. And the more Seisms we have to dodge, the more chances we have to fail. And ultimately, it just wasn't worth... Yeah, see, that was another quick cast. Ultimately, it just wasn't worth trying to get lucky on guessing the right cast times for the Seism. And so we just opted to use Levitate, which means we have to have the staff out, which means we can't use cannon, which means the only real effective damage we have was Holy Focus Bolt and then deflecting certain spells back at him. So that's why we chose to go that route. It's also a little bit safer, don't get me wrong, but that's why we went that route. So this is a pretty fun way to kill him for me, because I actually get to use the shield a lot more. But ultimately, my favorite way to fight Daimon as a Mystic Knight is to do the combination of cannon with like Cursed Light or Verge of Madness even. Probably Verge of Madness a little bit better, depending on your stat profile, of course. But Verge of Madness with cannon and then having a fire, the Inferno Feint active, another very quick cast. Inferno Feint active so that you can simply deflect the attacks he has straight into your cannon and honestly chunk him up. He gets brutalized by it. We're gonna run away here. That move does do some damage if you're close. You have to be pretty close, but I don't know how close it is precisely, and I don't want to like risk it. We're at 286 health. There is no way we can heal unless we kill something. There is one enemy in this room, and it's the boss. So, yeah, we're just gonna wait. We have about a health bar and a half left. This has been a very long fight, obviously. Part of the problem is that he keeps casting abilities we can't deflect. We can't deflect Seism, we can't deflect Bolide. For some reason, he chose an Immolate there. That's interesting. Debilitation Clouds, we can't deflect. Half of his arm swings don't land very successfully. I am not going to even attempt to deflect Combustion for a couple reasons. One, Combustion by itself is dangerous, but when he casts Combustion, he actually is casting a triple Combustion. So there's even greater risk involved there. There's just a lot of things that we can't really do anything about. We can't deflect his big fire breath. We can't deflect the grab. We basically are reliant on him casting Levin, arm swipes, and Ingle. And if he has only a few moves that we can deflect and he has a lot of moves we can't, just the likelihood of us getting the right move is pretty low. That was the longer cast. You see how I say, do you see how long it takes in comparison to the other one? And it's very easy to not see the difference. Or yeah, it's very easy to not see the difference between the two. But there are like there's a difference. There's a difference. I don't know what dictates whether he can do a fast cast or a slow one. I have genuinely no idea. Someone with more game knowledge than I might know. But our problem with evading that one was actually less the our reading of how long or short the cast was, and more the fact that we jumped up those stairs, which meant we had less hang time. We had less air time simply because the ground was higher. The ground was higher than when we started, so we kind of shot ourselves in the foot with that one. But that's okay. Those were two convenient Ingles back to back. Well, not quite back to back, but in rapid succession. So we're pretty happy with that. If he gives us one more Ingle, he dies. 11 would be nice too. He might Soul Vortex here. He's pretty low. He can Soul Vortex. He's been allowed to Soul Vortex for a while. There it is. Unfortunately, we can't do anything during Soul Vortex, so we just have to wait. But yeah. Oh well. But like I said, if he hits us with one good Ingle, 11. I don't know if 11 will kill him. 11 might just barely kill him. Ingle will kill him because we'll get 2 sets of deflections off. So that's 10 fireballs that'll land on him. That's enough to kill him. 11, he might be very close to dead after a single set of 5 fireballs, but I don't actually know. I don't actually know that it kills him. I mean, we will have to see. If he does an arm swipe with his right arm... His right arm? Yeah, his right arm will probably be in business to have him low but not dead. But his left arm, we'd absolutely be screwed. Yeah, all 5 of those hit. And he's got just a sliver of health. Please be Ingle. Nope. So yeah, if it had been 11, this would have been probably a similar situation. Because all 5 of the arm swipes, or the fireballs on the arm swipe hit. You'll note that when he casts Bolide, I run behind him. The reason for that is Bolide often casts towards the caster. So if you cast Bolide, your camera's facing outwards, right? It's facing in front of your player, usually. Unless you decided to manually manipulate the character. But Bolide will cast from the sky in front of you towards you at an angle. Because I know that, I'm running behind him so that the Bolides are casting also towards me. The reason for that is because I don't want the Bolide to target the ground away from me, but the comet itself to streak through my character and hit me. If I'm on the far end of the room where they're heading, the likelihood that one spawns behind me is extremely low. That's why you see me run so far behind him when he casts Bolide. It's just a safety thing. But with that, we got him. Honestly, not that bad of a fight. We got hit one time, I think, in phase 2. In phase 1, we got hit by like a kick and a grab. And that's about it. Not the best fight, but like, hey, no healing. Shield only. We take those here. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I want to thank you guys for watching. We do stream these runs live over at twitch.tv/localticobrohe. I am going to be moving soon, so while I do stream every weekday now, that might be changing in a little bit, but we'll see. But be sure to check us out. Thanks for watching, everybody. Cheers.